for combat with the M2 Bradley armored fighting vehicle.
The main gun in the Bradley is a 25mm Bushmaster chain gun. It's the best gun in the world.
The Bradley carries a squad of 6 to 8 soldiers, specially trained for counterinsurgency operations.
Traditionally, the tank in a force-on-force, Cold War sort of engagement, the tank was the punch. It was leading the fight, and it was the combat arm of decision. Well, in an insurgency where you don't know where the enemy is or who the enemy is, and you're in an urban scenario, the tank becomes a hunter and the Bradley becomes a killer. So they complement each other very well.
The integration of tank and troops has become a lethal combination of firepower and rapid deployment in the field.
I wouldn't want to fight in one. I wouldn't want to fight in one at all. Like, it all looks fun because the engineering side of it and that, but when it comes down to having to sit in one in battle, and that, I certainly wouldn't want to do it. No way. I've got a big respect for the people who used to fight them. And that, they done well, to be perfectly honest.
More than 6 decades after this Comet saw action in the battlefield, and 12 years of patiently collecting all its parts, this Comet tank has finally come together in one piece. But before it's ready for action, the engine has to be rebuilt, the electrics installed, and the detailing completed.
I think it's probably going to take us another 2 years.
It's a labor of love that requires patient determination, but summer is fast approaching, and it's time for the crew to prepare their first annual tank show. After a long winter, summer finally comes to the Isle of Wight. For some, it's a chance to enjoy the warm weather. For Dave Arnold and his crew, this is the time to take some tanks for a spin. Dave's friend has lent them a fully restored Comet tank, and they're going to run it at their first annual tank show. It's a perfect day. The visitors have gathered. They have 10 tanks, and guests from the British Army, and 2 cars that are about to make the ultimate sacrifice. Bob becomes the master of ceremonies.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're shortly be commencing our display. At the moment, just driving around in the arena for you is our Saracen Armoured Personnel Carrier. We are offering rides in this vehicle this afternoon, £3 adult, £2 children. Tickets available at the museum shop.
Retired tank driver Ginge takes the visitors for joyrides. Dave and Dave handle the tanks.
This vehicle's a Cold War warrior.
Dave Barnes is the master of the Soviet T-54.
I think it is. I think driving the T-54 is his favourite thing about working here. He always drives it because no one else can be bothered with it. It's a horrible thing to drive, and he seems to have mastered it pretty well, so we let him drive it.
Then the Comet takes center stage.
Out of all of them, I think probably the Comet's the nicest to drive. The Comet's much smoother, the gear changes, a crash box, but when you double declutch and drive it properly, you get the gears nice, it's nice and comfortable to sit in. The suspension is superb, it just floats along.
After the tanks have done their rounds, it's time for car crushing.
The lamb to the slaughter. Anybody wants any spare bits, now's the time to ask.
Blow by blow of the T-54 versus car. Well, the cars always lose. We use the T-54 for crushing the cars because the T-54's got the strongest track guards that can put up with all the abuse of having the bits of mangled car going around them. We take off the bits of track guards that will get damaged, and then David takes over and he always does the car crushing at the end. He likes to take one slice at a time across the car just to tease the crowd. I think really you can just tell by the look on his face how much he's enjoying it. He loves every minute. In fact, he wouldn't actually let anybody else in the tank to do it, so if you said to him, can we crush a car? Nope, you wouldn't get in there.
May 8th, 1945. 47 days after the comets first crossed the Rhine, the Allies took Berlin and the war was over. The Soviet army organized a massive victory parade through the streets of Berlin. It was an opportunity for each ally to show off their latest tank. For the British, it was the Comet. The Americans, the new Pershing. But the Soviets had prepared a surprise.
And the Russians, being, as you know, brilliant show people, saved their contribution until last. And it is said that at the end of the Russian parade, the Unter den Linden began to shake. And what they saw for the very first time was the Stalin tank, the ISO JS-3, the latest Russian heavy tank. No one in the West had seen it before. 122mm gun, huge wide tracks clattering along 3 abreast.
The massive Soviet tanks dwarfed everything in the Allied arsenal.
Now, it is said that the British officer on the saluting dais was seen to turn pale and his jaw dropped. And Patton, who was standing alongside him, is reputed to have said out of the corner of his mouth, "Don't worry, buddy, we're still on your side."
The Comet tank, in its hour of victory, was already obsolete. The Second World War was over, but the Cold War was about to begin, and with it, a new era of the supertank.
So I think it did what old soldiers do. The Comet just slowly faded away.
The goal is to have 4. It'll be the only troop of running Second World War tanks in the world.
Not just one Comet, but a platoon of 4, all in running condition. All it takes is perseverance and time.
Well, we've done a lot in 12 years, haven't we? We've moved workshops, completely built a museum. You know, there's only like a couple of you doing it. Takes 12 years.
Yeah, it is. It is what I want to do for the rest of my life, to be perfectly honest.
This workshop is going to be busy for years to come.
Some wedgies, crowbar.
Big hammer.
Here we go again.